Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing today? Yes, it's another bedroom video, sitting here on my cozy Christmas comforter. And I just wanted to come on here and talk a little bit today. Today is the eve of my 27th sobriety birthday. And I'm like feeling so blessed today, but like I'm all up in my feelings too, you know? And I think because today, especially, I'm not thinking so much about my birthday or the gift of recovery, of which I'm extremely grateful. I'm thinking really about where I was 27 years ago today, you know? And I remember that last day. I don't remember everything about it, but I remember that last day. And I remember how weirdly normal it had become for me to live that way. So tomorrow I'm sure I'll do a video talking about my sobriety. I have no idea what I'll talk about yet, but I'm sure I will. So today I wanted to talk about that last night. If maybe to help somebody out there that's struggling like I was, and their off the charts life has become maybe normal for them. But also for me to remember. I can remember waking up that day, and it was in the afternoon at some point. I can remember laying in bed, and I had this big window in my bedroom, and I didn't have curtains or anything on it. And I can remember laying in bed looking out the window, and I could see that it was lightly snowing, like a Charlie Brown Christmas kind of snow, like at the beginning when they're ice skating, you know, and Lucy wants to catch snowflakes on her tongue. It was snowing like that morning, or that day, and I remember that morning. 2 o'clock in the afternoon was my morning. And I remember getting up and drinking. I don't remember what I drank, but at that point I was drinking about a fifth and a half of Jack Daniels a day, 4 to 5 40-ounce malt liquors, because I really liked like Colt 45 and Old English, beer because it was cheap, wine because it was cheap. I was smoking a lot of marijuana throughout the day, and eating a lot of pills, and also snorting and cocaine and using crack cocaine, smoking crack cocaine. And I remember getting up. I can see my apartment. It's weird when I tell this story because I can see myself moving around as I do it. And like, I haven't lived in that apartment, and well, I moved out that following a year later, that January. So I haven't lived in that apartment for 26 years, and it's like I can see it like I was just there yesterday. And so I came out, and I shook so bad in the morning. I had DT so bad, and they're called delirium tremens. And I shook so bad because of the alcohol leaving my system and being so chemically dependent on alcohol at that point that I had to drink to get the shakes gone. Which, if you know anybody by that point, I mean, it's bad. And I had hidden that from anybody. I mean, nobody knew that my drinking was that bad at that point. And I think that was probably one of the things that I remember, like, going into treatment when I talked about that to the doctor, that the doctor was kind of like, well, you're 22 and you have DTs. Like, that's serious, right? And I just thought it was normal. I thought that and blackout drinking and all this kind of stuff, which I'm going to talk about in a second, I thought that was all normal, right? So, made myself a drink, which is like the first thing I did. I usually just like shot something, like whatever I had, like Jack Daniels or whatever I had. I always made sure that I had alcohol for when I got up. So no matter what I had to do to get alcohol when I came home, I made sure that I had enough for the next day. I always did. Because I was so terrified not to have alcohol the next day. So did that, and then at some point I took a shower. I had like been drinking, and for some reason I see myself like drinking a 40 or like a beer and like eating a couple Vicodin. That was probably my pill of choice at the time. And standing in the shower, I can see myself like standing in the shower, just like drink. And I like to drink in the shower, which is like, look back on that, it's just so bizarre. I don't know why. So I remember getting out of the shower And I can remember, it was interesting because when I was younger, like, my mom would get up and she would kind of go through this ritual too, right? Having drank very heavily the night before. And I used to always think of my mom as like the pretty drinker. I used to always think she looked so elegant and so pretty when she was drinking. But then the come down from that was not pretty whatsoever, right? And I think that that's the illusion that we tell ourselves. I was talking on my vlog last night about living in the lie. And I think that the lie for many of us as alcoholics or addicts is it's not as bad as it really looks, when in all reality it's much worse, And I always thought of my mom as like this pretty drinker until I was older and I looked back on it and I was like, there was nothing pretty about it whatsoever, So anyway, I took a shower, got out of the shower, sat in a robe, and I can remember sitting on my couch and putting in the movie Charlie Brown's Christmas, because I've been thinking about that, right? And just kind of watching it on repeat, I remember, like, weirdly, and sitting there and smoking weed and joints. We smoked joints back then. And I also, I'd smoke anyway anybody had it, but like I had a one hitter and I had smoked joints. And I can remember just continuing to drink throughout the afternoon. And for me, that was getting to a point where I was waiting for my friends to get off work or be done so that we could all go out, And so 27 years ago tonight was a Friday night. For a long time, I thought that it had been a Sunday night because I went to this bar called The Vogue. And on Sundays, The Vogue had these like gay dance nights that were called Boing. So that's why I thought that it had been a Sunday night. But somebody looked it up because I was talking about it on a vlog one night, and they said that it was actually a Friday night. So I must have been there for some special event. I don't know if it was like a holiday event or if it was like a pageant or something, because they had pageants there sometimes, but I was there. And my best friend that I used to party with the most, she had moved back to she had moved to where her parents lived, but she was living with her grandfather at the time and trying to like save money and stuff. And I felt very alone. And I had a couple friends that lived downtown and I would go see them and stuff like that. And by the time that I would see them, they would think that I was completely sober, that like I had been drinking. So we would pre-drink at their house and whatever, because I had been drinking all day to get to the point where my hands no longer shook. And so we would pre-drink and do shots and all that kind of stuff and whatever other, substances we were using. And then we would go out. And at some point out, like very quickly, I would go from really having like and this is the addiction or alcoholism, I would have this perfect buzz that would last me maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then it would cross right over into a blackout. And for those of you that don't know what a blackout is not passing out. Passing out is where you like fall asleep. Blacking out is where you continue to function, but the people around you don't know that you're in a blackout. So you are only like, you're going in and out as far as memory, but you might be having a conversation with somebody. You might be, doing all kinds of things, right? Dancing on a bar. You might, who knows what you're doing, right? But you're in a blackout and you're not going to remember it. And there are some things to this day I have never remembered. I can remember when I first heard the saying in sobriety that more will be revealed. And I thought that meant that over time I would remember things that had happened to me in blackouts. And to this day, 27 years later, I can tell you there are some things that I don't remember at all, of places that I woke up in situations where I woke up and looked around like, how did I get here? Who is this person? But then other dangerous situations, falling asleep. I mean, I woke up in front yards. I woke up like in a parking lot one time, not in a car. I put myself in really scary situations, and I've talked about them on here before, things like simulating oral sex to a loaded cocked gun because my drug dealer thought that was funny, or stealing from drug dealers, money and drugs. I mean, they kill over stuff like that, or just drinking as much as I was drinking. It's just, I look back on it, And what's so strange looking back on this last day is how normal it seemed to me then. And really, truly how normal it's still, like, looking back, I'm thinking, and that wasn't even the worst day that I had. That wasn't even nearly my top 100 worst days of using, you know? And that's what's crazy, is we get to a point where our lives just seem normal. And so for anybody out there, you know, that doesn't want to live this life anymore, I don't know, listen to my story. Maybe this is for you, you know? So went down, got my friends, we went to the Vogue at some point, and I actually that night met this guy that ended up becoming my first boyfriend after I got out of treatment, and I didn't remember meeting him, like, at all. And I was obsessed with my ex-boyfriend that I had broken up with, who had already moved on to somebody else. And so I was trying to find out, when I got into treatment, all this stuff about him. And my friend said, don't you remember you met this guy? And, like, she was friends with him. Or, don't you remember you met so-and-so? And I was like, who is that? And she's like, well, he's been calling, like, every other day, checking to make sure that you're okay. And I was like, somebody cares about me? Somebody's worried about me? She's like, yeah, and he had this great job and was really educated and really nice guy, and it didn't hurt that he looked like Ben Affleck, and you know, and wore, like, I was just talking about this last night, so it's like in my head, but he wore, like, you know, black roll neck J. Crew sweaters and had real curly dark hair, which I've always had a thing for, and he cared about me, and he really cared about me, you know? You like me, you really like me. But I met him that night, and I have no memory of meeting him whatsoever. And what I do remember from that night is that I remember at one point ending up in the alley right outside. There was an alley that went to the parking lot, and I can remember standing up there looking at the snow, thinking about how it looked like Charlie Brown's Christmas. I can remember thinking that as somebody, and I don't remember who it was, is handing me a crack pipe to hit. Like, that's the insanity of where my life was, right? And, you know, I think about how sad that was, that innocence of that wanting that Charlie Brown Christmas was mixed with this absurdity of this chemical dependence that I was living in, you know? And it makes me really sad. And for any of you out there that watch my other videos, you know how much I love Christmas. Well, even if you just watch this channel, you know, like, with the front porch and the cozy Christmas mysteries and the Christmas movies. I mean, I love Christmas today. And that had become something that I didn't care about anymore, you know? And I didn't care about anything. I really didn't. I didn't really care about anything. I only cared about just this cycle. It was just this repetitive cycle of getting drunk and high and getting drunk and high. And I didn't know how to get out of it. And I really didn't want to get out of it. You know, if anybody had offered me a solution, and that's where, you know, people say, like, well, you can't force someone to get sober. If I hadn't gone into treatment, I can tell you I wouldn't be sitting here right now. And I'm going to share with you how this night ended. But if I had made it home that night, I don't think I'd be here right now. You know, 2-3 years ago, my dad and I were having lunch for my birthday, and we got into a real deep discussion about this. And I looked at him and I said, do you really think that if I kept on using, and he interrupted me and he said, you would be dead right now. And I said, you really think that? He goes, without a shadow of a doubt, you would be dead right now. But yet the denial in my head still screws with me, that I think, well, maybe I wouldn't have been. But I don't even know what my life would have turned out to be, because at that point, I wasn't in school, I wasn't working. The only thing I did was deal drugs, and I wasn't even good at that. And I rarely did that, you know, because I would use whatever I had. I mean, it just is ridiculous. And I look back on it and I thought I had no skills to be hired for, nor could I have gotten up for a job. I don't even know what my life, I don't know what would have happened. And that's scary. That's scary as hell to me. So I had this friend of mine that was there that night, which is weird because he never really went out anymore. And this was a guy that I used to date. And his name was Jack. And Jack has since passed away. And I'm smiling because Jack was a character. He was hilarious and fantastic artist. And I love Jack. He was a good guy. And he would always say, Peter. He always talked to me that, you know. So anyway, but Jack said to me that night, and he lived hell and gone from there. He lived like in Fountain Square, and I live on the north side, which is like past downtown. And he was like, why don't you let me drive, because he didn't have a car. He was like, why don't you let me drive your car to my house, and you can just stay there for the night. I think my friends left me at the bar or something, and it was like bad. Like, and I was like snowing outside, and I was like, no, I'm good. And he was like, let me drive your car back to my house, and you can just stay at my house for the night. I mean, it wasn't like he wasn't propositioning me or anything like that. It was just, you know. And I'm so thankful that I had so many friends of mine. He wasn't the only one. I had a lot of friends that really cared enough to, like, let me stay on their couch. And then I would wake up in the middle of the night and drive away anyway, you know, but they tried their hardest to take care of me. And And I feel bad for that, you know? Like, I feel bad that I put my friends and my family through so much fear. I think that's one thing as alcoholics and addicts, we don't really think about that. We don't really think, we think about, okay, maybe we wrecked a party or a wedding or, you know, the financial cost, but we don't think about the fear that we instill in the people around us. So we go to his house. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, if you're going to make me sit here, the least that you can do is, you know, let me drink. So we're sitting there drinking a couple beers or whatever. And he had taken my keys and put them in his bedroom. So finally he's like too tired and he goes to bed. It's now at this point, probably like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and he goes to bed. I'm going to tell you guys part of a weird story here in a second. And I just, it's my story and I don't know what to say, but it's weird. So, and I know that it's weird, but it's, like I said, my story. So he goes to sleep, and I wait like a half an hour, because I'm not stupid, and I went in my bedroom very quietly, or went in his bedroom very quietly, and I took my keys. I don't even know how I found them. I think he just had them on his dresser or something. And I took his keys. And I also remember this, that I took like 2 tapes. I took like a Tori Amos tape. I don't even like Tori Amos. No offense to Tori Amos fans out there, but I just don't. I took a Tori Amos tape, and we were listening to her, I think, that night. I took a Tori Amos tape. I can see his living room because he had like this futon, and we were sitting on this futon just talking, and I just was talking madness, probably. And he was just tolerating me until he could go to sleep. But I took a Tori Amos tape, and I took a Sarah McLachlan tape, and I still to this day like remember that and feel bad about that. I think years later he goes, I always wonder where those tapes. I said something to him, and he was like, I always wonder where those tapes went, and I was like, well, I still have them. He was like, keep them. So anyway. And then I went to his refrigerator and I took as much beer as I could, and I put it in my pockets. And I ran outside. And right as I got, and it was like slightly snowing, like Charlie Brown's Christmas again. And right as I got to behind my truck, I like fell on the ground, like on my butt. And it was like freezing cold. And I can remember just like sitting there and like looking up at the snow falling underneath like the street lamps. And I can remember thinking how peaceful and beautiful it was. And I remember sitting there completely out of my mind, okay? Going like this, trying to catch snowflakes on my tongue. But then I realized that I knew that he was going to find me eventually. So I was like, okay, I got to get out of here. And I left. And on the way home, I remember looking over in my passenger seat. I've talked about this on my vlog, but there's a longer story, and I will tell it someday on here. But I know when I tell this, people think I'm crazy, but this is my memory. I remember sitting back in my driver's seat, not touching the wheel. This is what I remember. I don't know how true it was, but this is what I remember. And I remember I was talking to somebody in the passenger seat. And I was saying that I just didn't want to be here anymore. And I don't know what that meant, because I never felt suicidal in my life. I never felt like I wanted to take my life. But in that moment, I was saying, like, I just don't want to be here anymore, and what's the point, blah, 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 whatever. And I can remember I looked over, and I thought that I had been talking to somebody, like there was somebody in the seat, and there was nobody there. And I wasn't steering the car. And I can remember I came to, like, really quick and, like, grabbed the wheel. To this day, I know it sounds crazy, but I really do believe that I believe in spiritual experiences, and for me that was one. And I believe that I know that there's a God and I'm not it, and I do have a higher power. And how do I know that? People ask me. It's the faith that I have, and I don't pertain to any certain religion. I'm just believing myself as a spiritual person. You know, I just recently was talking to a friend of mine, and we were talking about gender roles associated to God and things like that, and he said, you know, I guess I just don't take my God's inventory. He was like, you know, I just know that if there's something out there that's bigger than me, I don't have to know everything about it. And I was like, wow, like I really like that, you know? And, but there was something in that car that night. There was something. And, I think I was supposed to die that night. So anyway, the next thing I know, I'm driving through Castleton. I don't remember parts of this. Castleton is like close to where I live. And there was a White Castle and a Perkins there. And I think I was trying to go to the White Castle. And I drove through the White Castle, drove past the White Castle. And I drove into the side of Perkins. And like their kitchen was in the back. And I like took out siding off the back wall and stuff. And then I like drove in and like boom, like into this ditch. And this waitress that used to work at Perkins, she came out, and I knew her from all the nights that I had gone to Perkins with my friends, and she came out and took care of me. And she was like, is there somebody that I can call for you? And I said, yeah, I need to call my dad. And now what I don't know is that when my dad found me, I was like walking across the interstate in like boxer shorts and like biker boots. And like, I don't know why I was dressed that way. I don't know if I left my friend's house and just had on, you know, what do you call them? What did I just say? Boxer shorts. I must have just left his house in boxer shorts and my boots. And I had like this leather biker jacket thing on and like a t-shirt. And my dad found me, and I was walking over the interstate. And I was saying, I just want to go home. 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 My dad said it was so eerie to him, though, because he didn't, even though I was walking in the direction of my apartment, he didn't think that I meant home, that he thought that I meant some kind of ethereal home, like not be here anymore. So I called my dad, and I knew that I was either going to go to jail or I was probably going to go to treatment one way or the other. So I went to this grocery store. I think there was a Kroger or something over there, Marsh. And I went there, and whatever money I had in my pockets, I bought all these cigarettes, because at the time you could smoke, you know, in jail and treatment and stuff. So, and I just filled my pockets up with it, and then I must have just started walking. At some point, my dad showed up, and, you know, it's like 5 o'clock in the morning. My dad shows up in a suit and tie. When I got hit by a van when I was 18 years old, I got hit by a van. They think that this might be why I have epilepsy, but they're not sure. I had left a party that I had gotten kicked out of. I had turned over a bar table in the garage because they wouldn't serve me anymore, because the guy that I was dating told him to stop serving me. And I was walking home, and I was walking across, if you live in Indianapolis, I was walking across 96 in Allisonville, and it used to be a gravel road. And as I was walking across it, it was in the pitch black. I was in all black, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and a van, a mother and a father and their kids, hit me, and they were going about 50 miles an hour, and I was thrown 50 feet, and I landed on my head. And the people, the med people that came to get me and get me to the hospital, apparently the first thing I said was, I just need a drink. I think about that from time to time. Like, that has been so long since that happened, and I really minimized it at the time, and I think about how seriously crazy that is, you know? And again, my dad showed up at the time, chief of staff of the hospital. He showed up, suit and tie, in the middle of the night, and I was so belligerent that they were going to arrest me as soon as I got out of there. My dad came in there, and he said, you need to hold it down or they're going to arrest you as soon as you get out of here. And that was my dad. And my dad got in the car. My stepmom was in the car with me, and I don't know what I was saying. I was babbling or whatever. And I remember he sat in the driver's seat, and because he had been talking to the tow truck and the policeman and stuff, and he turned around and he said, you can go to jail or you can go to treatment, but I'm done with you. I'm done. And like every good addict, I said, I'm going to treatment. Let's go. And so my stepmom took me to treatment while my dad stayed there and dealt with the car. I went into treatment. I don't remember a lot about the assessment that I had. I remember that I had, I remember that they did a quick test on me, and I tested literally across the board for almost everything. I remember I blew a BAL of like 0.36 or something. I mean, it was literally like, the woman said to my stepmom, he should be dead. Like, the fact that he is walking right now, like, he should be dead. And I remember my stepmom, these are the only images that I have of my stepmom. I don't remember being walked back to the detox unit. I don't remember being admitted. I don't remember any of that. I remember my stepmom looked at me and bawling and said, please stay. Please let them keep you here. And I think I just didn't even know what to do at that point, and I did. You know? So when they say that people that don't want to stay sober don't stay sober, I'm not a believer in that, because I had no desire to stay sober. I wanted everybody off my ass, period, end of story. That's what I wanted. I wanted people to leave me alone and let me drink and drug until I didn't care anymore. That's what I wanted. And if I got what I deserved, I would be dead right now. But I didn't get what I deserved. Because I wasn't a good person, and I wasn't a kind person, and I wasn't a nice person. I was a selfish, self-centered bastard that only cared about myself and only cared about getting... I didn't care about my stepmom. I didn't care about my mom. I didn't care about my dad. I didn't care about my friends. I didn't care about anybody. The only person I cared about was myself. And I'm thankful that people out there care more about me than I could care about myself. Because even even though I was the only thing that was important to myself, it still wasn't enough. So I stayed. Not because I wanted to, but because I wanted everybody to get off my ass, right? Because they'd say, you have a problem drinking and drugging. No, you think I have a problem. I don't have a problem. You have a problem with the way that I drink. And, you know, my dad would say, you have a problem drinking. No, you have a problem with the way that I would drink, I would say. And then I'd use it as an excuse to go to stop at the liquor store on the way home from my dad's house, you know? So I woke up the next day... next to this giant sleeping next to me in the bed that I was terrified of. And I looked out the window, and it was snowing like crazy. Story of my life, right? And I remember putting on these hospital scrubs and these socks that have the scruff pads on the bottom of them so you didn't fall. And I remember putting on this scrub robe. They had taken all my clothes and stuff because they probably were nasty and stank. And I remember walking out to the nurse's station, and this woman standing there, I couldn't see her, and she turned around, and it was my neighbor that I had grown up next to. And I knew she was a nurse, but I had no idea she worked at this treatment facility. And when I tell you that I was ashamed and embarrassed, and I wanted to die right there on the spot, that's how I felt. And I looked at her, and I said, I need to go. I need to get out of here. And she put her hand across and she said, you are really, really sick. She goes, please stay. She said, your vitals are just off the charts. Apparently my vitals, like, you know, my heart rate and blood pressure, everything was just off the charts. She said, please stay. I said, no, I need to go. I need to get out of here. And she said, like, I'm really worried about you. And, you know, I sometimes wonder, like, if it wasn't her, if it had been somebody that I hadn't known, I wonder if I would have left. And I talked about this in my vlog last night. I didn't find out till about 3 days before I discharged from treatment that that it wasn't a lockdown facility. I later worked there. I didn't know that it wasn't a lockdown facility. I thought I could leave whenever I wanted. Had I known that it wasn't a lockdown facility, I probably would have left. You know? I mean, I'm so thankful for that, you know? My stupidity. I thought I had to stay there. So anyway... So, you know, they kept her cigarettes and stuff. So she handed me these cigarettes and she said, go down to the lounge. We have real caffeinated coffee. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I didn't even know what that meant yet. When you're in treatment, you don't get caffeinated coffee. And I was on the way down to that lounge and there was this full-length mirror. And I can remember standing and turning and looking at myself in this mirror in this robe. And my hair was all messed up and, you know, my face was bruised and stuff. And I thought, you got what you wanted, didn't you? You're a pretty drinker now. Like, seriously. How weird. You know, those things that we look up to in our lives. And I don't think that's why I'm an alcoholic. I don't blame it on my mom being a pretty drinker. I'm just saying that, like, if I drank, I always thought to myself, I want to drink that way. You know, I want to hold a glass this way or whatever. And it was never that. It was always just a feeling. And I can remember going down to this lounge and getting a cup of coffee and, sitting there smoking a cigarette, thinking to myself, how the hell did I end up here? That was 27 years ago. So I'm doing much better today. I'm doing much better today than I was doing 27 years ago. But I'm extremely thankful for that day 27 years ago. And I'm thankful for my nurse. I'm thankful for my dad and my stepmom. I'm thankful for my friends. I'm thankful for everybody that got me where I'm at today because, you know, I think it really does take a village to raise a child. And I was a child, you know, at 22 and a half. I was a kid that didn't know what the hell I was doing with my life, you know. There are people that die every day of this disease that will never see another day tomorrow. Since I've made this video, 4 people have died. Every 8 to 9 minutes, somebody dies in our country from an overdose. And recovery and sobriety is a gift. It's a gift that I'm extremely grateful for every single day. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.